from March 20th in 2020 up until May 3rd of 2020. Across that time, I was kind of publicly had our conversations banned and deleted. Then I got strikes against me, deplatformed across all tech platforms. Ofcom here in the UK came after us, the whole thing. And I have recorded conversations with YouTube execs because I was in the partner program. I've got a gold button that Susan Wojcicki sent me. I spent a lot of time down at YouTube up until that moment. I've been broadcasting for 9 years, Ed, putting out conversations of two people speaking in a studio like this, and never once had I had a single video taken down until April 6th of 2020. We had the second largest YouTube live stream in the world that day, 65,000 concurrent viewers. Only person that beat us was Trump that night for his coronavirus briefing. And 30 minutes later, that video was pulled. And it started a very public fight I had with YouTube trying to find out what was going on. And I got a lot of funny answers. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I leave that to my guests. All I know is what happened. And I know my rights for freedom of speech, and they were not being respected by my governments. I was being told these are private platforms and you sign their agreements, so they have the right to do that. And then when I look at the Twitter files, Ed, I find out that my government was violating, my Second Amendment rights by telling a private company to basically violate them. And so it's been fascinating to see what happened there. And it explained maybe what it felt to me like a coordinated attack, if there were governments involved. But a lot of things here need to be unpacked. And like you said, there's real criminal behavior here because lives were definitely lost because we couldn't have these conversations. And
right.
And it's been interesting to see what happens with Google. I think they're worried about potentially Google files coming out. And so they're changing their game. We had Robert Malone in this studio streaming live on YouTube. And I later looked at some of his clips that we put up on YouTube in defiance. And for the first time ever, I saw a thing on YouTube that says you can watch this content, but it goes against policies. And I'd never seen that before. So they're definitely changing their tune. I would love personally to see the YouTube files because I'm sure our name's written all over them, but they'll probably maybe never come out. But if they did, I think they would be really damning for that because like I said, we really felt what was going on back then. On so many levels. I mean, I had Martin Kulldorff on here, one of the authors of the Great Barrington Declaration. I couldn't stream him on YouTube. And that was just saying about like you. He said, Brian, I looked at the numbers. It's old people dying. We don't need to shut down all the businesses. And that's actually killing more people. And we had this long conversation I had to stream on my own platform because YouTube wouldn't let us do it. And funny enough, Ed, at the end of it, I said, Martin, you're a doctor. I said, how can we rush through a vaccine that's going to be put into the arms of most of the human population with a few months of research when it normally takes 7 to 10 years? Is this not the single biggest experimentation of all time of humanity and the most dangerous one we could ever execute that'll affect all of our ancestors? And he just paused during the broadcast and said, yeah, Brian, it's a very scary thing. And that was like in September 2020. And so, we had these conversations earlier. By the way, when I was broadcasting, if you would even presume that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, they were literally going to lock you up in a padded room. You couldn't talk about masks. You couldn't question the functionality of a PCR test or whether it was even designed for that. I mean, you couldn't do any of that stuff that early on. And later, we're now realizing that most of the stuff is now accepted. So yeah, it was frustrating to be a part of that. If we had just allowed for an open and honest debate to find out maybe if there was any validity to this or not, it's hard for me to imagine how many lives we could have saved, let alone talk about the vaccine issue. So yeah, it's been a real part of my personal journey, Ed, as you can tell.
Well, I just want to add on to that. You were part of my analyst mosaic. I've been watching you for years prior to your deplatforming. And when you got deplatformed so quickly, and then I started seeing doctors malign, my warning signals and flares went off. And then the coordination of the global governments in unison saying the same things. When was the last time you saw global governments ever on the same page? Never. I'm not in the room, but it made me ask questions. I just started asking questions, and I was very suspicious. And you were part of my analyst mosaic. I remember you walking, doing a streaming from your phone, talking about what had just happened to you, and I was like horrified. I'm like, what is going on here?
Well, I'm glad I could be a data point. I was literally reacting, and it was crazy because everything was locked down. Well, I didn't miss a day of work in 2020. We were determined to come. We actually dialed up the frequency of our interviews, and we were interviewing all the doctors that were banned, everybody that was persona non grata at the time, putting out these messages on our own platform. So
yeah, you're like me, a moth to a flame. Oh, I can't look at this. I'll look at this. I mean, that's just the way you and I are wired from Wall Street. When someone tells us don't look over here, we look there.
And then this whole concept of freedom of speech and allowing people to consume the information and make their own decision. I mean,
correct.
The concept of dangerous information it went against everything in my bones and DNA. And it was so strange to kind of watch it all unfold. You mentioned what you said about governments in the world never being able to agree on anything. And yet on this, they all agreed, all the same language, almost the same, reactions, mandates. What do you make of all that? And then, because I want to kick it from there now into where we are today,
Well, I have opinions. I can't prove this. And I left it out of my book on purpose because my book is just to detail the vaccine data that I see, or the death data, the disability data. I blame the vaccines, all the sudden athletic deaths, the catalog in my book. I left out the who and the why because that's not important. But my thesis is this: there was a global economic sovereign debt default coming, and COVID, whether it was planned or used as an excuse, is a very convenient control system. If you're going to have economic collapse, wouldn't it be nice to prevent travel, keep people in their homes, keep them in fear, create surveillance systems via a vaccine and then the digital ID, and then the ultimate end game here is central bank digital currency. So, and one of the things that really tipped me off on this is again my opinion, my thesis, was James Bullard on April 5th, I believe, of 2020, a mere couple of weeks after lockdowns, is on Face the Nation. And I'm like, why are we talking to a Federal Reserve president? Well, they started asking questions. How are we going to reopen the economy? Won't everyone be so afraid? He said, well, the good news is we have technology now that will allow us to test daily. We can issue immunity badges. When I heard immunity badges, I thought vaccine passport immediately. And I also thought, and then she, they talked about that. And then she said, when we come back, we're going to talk about all the new surveillance technologies available to implement this. So that was April 5th of 2020. That was not received well at the time. I started talking about vaccine passports on Twitter, called a conspiracy theorist. And they memory hold that. That was what we call a trial balloon. They trial ballooned it too early, and then they buried that, and no Fed governor ever spoke on the issue again. So I'm very suspicious that this is a control system. And also, let's talk about what happened. France has a lot of riots and protests going on right now.
Yeah, if you remember, I was there last week, and I got to see the cars burning on the roads. I was there for a blockchain conference, and it's all kicking off there.
Do you remember prior? Most people in the U.S. don't know this because they didn't, televise it. But there were yellow jacket protests in France for weeks on end in 2018, going into 2019, and COVID mysteriously wiped those all off the map. No more protests. So I'm just saying, as an analyst, this sounds like a good narrative that, I think if we did some investigations and some discovery, my narrative is pretty close to the truth. Again, it's my opinion, it's my thesis at this point, but COVID and the unison of all the global governments suggested that they were worried about something that they weren't telling the public, which is we're broke, the social contract's been broken, all the pensions. I mean, I don't think people understand that they're never going to be able to pay all these pensions. So this is where we are. And what we see now is economically is the beginning of what I call the end of the current fiat system, and something else will emerge. I don't know what, but we're at the end of this, I think.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.